How many of you have ever gone to Home Depot? If you do, then you've experienced my sermon title. Because you ask for this and they send you to that place, you ask the person over there and they tell you to talk to the person over here and they say, well, if you can't find it there, maybe we have it in the back. They go in the back. You know when they say it's in the back, they're just killing your time. You know that it's not back there, right? So you go here to talk to that person, you go there to speak to that person, and in the end you've gone everywhere and yet you have gone nowhere. Amen? Is there a store worse than Home Depot? Where? Lowe's. Lowe's, okay. She probably owns stock in Home Depot, you know? That's the Lowe's. Anyway. We've all experienced those events where you're trying to get something done and it just never seems to fall in place. And at the end of the day, you said, I was busy and I did all this stuff, but I accomplished nothing. What do we call it? A wild goose chase. Which, by our definition, in our society, our culture, means you wasted a lot of time. Right? Well, then, if that's your definition, you might be surprised, as I was, to learn just recently that in the Celtic church, Celtic Christianity, kind of those people, the background of the Scots and the Presbyterians, that a wild goose chase or a wild goose is another expression or another illustration for God's Spirit. Kind of blows your mind, doesn't it? Because we don't associate God's Spirit leading us all over the place to accomplish nothing. But I kind of like their definition because one of the things it seems that we have lost is the mystery and the unknown and the willingness to engage it, the adventure that God might possibly lead us. Places we don't anticipate and can't organize into a daytimer. An adventure, if you will. A wild goose chase, if you would, that only God's Spirit knows. Leading us to dreams we never dreamt of, to places we couldn't even imagine. I like that. I like that definition of a wild goose chase a whole lot more than the one I grew up with. Because it reminds me, and it should remind each of us, how we try to manage our lives. We try to manage our lives. We try to control them. We try to box them in. We try to routine them. And we get all frazzled when something happens out of our control, right? Something obstructs our way, or somebody throws a monkey wrench into our schedule, or messes up our day timer, or plays on our computer and crashes our schedule. We like to control things. We like to even control our faith in God. We like to bring God and define God by what our human reason can accomplish. That's not to say we don't want to live, and we don't want to live with God in our lives. It's just that we want God to live by our terms in our life. We would like it to be neat, and we'd like it to be tidy. And most of all, we'd like it to be predictable. Never taking us too far out of our comfort zone or requiring or asking of us too much. Allowing us, when we do this, it allows us to think that we are being faithful, and yet when God calls us to the precipice, when God calls us to the edge and says, step over, we back off. We give ourselves just enough wiggle room to say, I'm faithful, and yet not one to follow. When it gets too dangerous or too risky, we back off. We don't like that wild goose chase. But let me explain. When you read the first Easter narrative, where does the story take you? Where's your mind always go? What's the image that we've raised up for centuries? The tomb. Is it not? When you hear Easter, what you think of is the tomb. And what we talk about is the empty tomb. And there's nothing wrong with that, except there's too many people go to the tomb and stay there. Easter doesn't get them any farther than that image, that illustration, and that understanding of faith. It's like an empty tomb. But the tomb of Easter is not a finishing point, it's a segue. It's a segue to the wild goose chase. It's a segue to a greater adventure and a broader understanding of the possibilities of life. A tomb is where things go that are dead. That's what you put in a tomb, things that are dead. And we got lots of things that we've allowed to die. Dreams, hopes, aspirations, possibilities. We once had them, but we let go of them. People took them away from them. They tarnished them. They diminished them. The world said you can't do them. They were crushed. Those are things that we've buried in the tomb. But they cannot be buried in this tomb. Because this tomb, the Easter tomb, is a different tomb. This tomb is not an ending, but a beginning. It's not a finishing point, it's a launching pad. It's a launching pad for reclaiming the hopes and revisioning the possibilities of life. Of life that God would give to you, of resurrection power that helps you to do not what you think you can do, but what God knows you can do. And there is a huge difference between one and the other. But it doesn't happen if you go to the tomb and you stay there, or if you allow the tomb to encumber you or to hold you in. You want to go to the tomb and through the tomb to what lies beyond. And what lies beyond is excitement and adventure and a wonderful, blessed unknown. Tombs are dry, dark, and cold. And that's the way many people are living. But Easter says, it's not that way with me. God says, there is so much more. Do you remember that children's book? We often give it to high school graduates. They count as children, right? Especially if they're yours. They're always your children. They never go away. All right? Remember that book, Oh, the Places? Oh, the places you will go. On Easter, the title should be, for the Easter narrative, Oh, the places God would take you. Oh, the places you would go. Oh, the places God would take you. Where God would take you if you let God do so. If the tomb raised up this morning was not seen as the end goal, the definition of the faith, but a mere leverage point to a greater faith. Think about it. Those first witnesses of the resurrection, those women who went early in the day, they went there to tend to a dead body. They went there to do what society and culture told them they needed to do. Take care of a lifeless body and pray for its spirit. Which really is not a representation of Jesus, it's an illustration of the human condition. It is an illustration of the human condition. People that are caught up by the ordinary and the expected and believe nothing more. And the world tells them, all you got to do is take care of the things that are already dead. That's all that's required of you. Just maintain the tomb. Don't let it revolutionize or evolutionize you. Just maintain the tomb. But you see, the Easter story isn't that way, because they came to do one thing and they left doing another. They didn't leave the same way. Instead, something occurred in that time and in place that empowered them to believe in more, and that's when not only their life, but the world began to change. Which is really the story. This is really the illustration of the power of the resurrection that we talk about on this day. I mean, we talk about Christ being raised from the dead, and we cheer about that, and we glory in that, and we preach about that. But what I tell you is, it's about something different than that. Because when you think about it, if you believe that God created the universe, right? If you believe that, then why is raising one person from the dead so big a deal? You would think, and you would believe, that the God who created the universe could do that. So what's the big deal? The big deal is not so much that as that God could raise the disciples from unbelief. that those who would follow them would be raised from their dull and deadly way of living into an empowered life of believing, to an existence that could be and would be so much more. And that's the real miracle of Easter. That's why Paul talks about the power of the resurrection, because that's the essence of this day. That you could tap into something and accomplish things through God's power that at this very moment you cannot even imagine. Blows me away. You know, there's only one way inside an ancient tomb. There's no exit in an ancient tomb except the entrance you came in. You go into those old tombs, nothing changes. The only thing that can change is not the way you go out, not the doorway you go out, but the way you go out. The only thing that changes is you. And Easter says, if you walk into the Easter tomb, beware. Watch out. Because if you open yourself up, oh, the places God will take you, the wild goose chase that lies ahead. Do you believe that? Do you want that? In your own life, do you feel dead and dreary? Do you seek that? That's what God offers this day. This past summer, my congregation knows this. This past summer, I was privileged to receive a Lilly grant from the Lilly Foundation in Indianapolis. Yay, Indianapolis, right? That allowed me to join an archaeological dig in Israel, and then my wife joined me for more time in Israel, and then 6 to 8 weeks in Egypt and in South Africa. A lot of people said, "Oh, you don't want to go to Egypt after the revolution." Perfect time to go to Egypt after the revolution. You got to trust, you got to have faith, right? A wise pastor once said to me, "God doesn't lead you anywhere to make a fool of you." But the place I didn't want to go was South Africa. My wife, it was in her bucket list. It was not in my bucket list. She had this dream of going on a safari. Why go on a safari? I've been to the zoo. Perfectly logical, don't you think? Have you not been to a zoo? Absolutely. Have you not seen a lion? Have you not seen an elephant? Well, it's the big deal here. You know what the big deal is? When you go to a zoo and an elephant is this far from you and goes, "Ah!" and there are no bars between you and that elephant, it is a whole different experience. When you are 10 or 15 feet away from a pride of lion, and there is a man at the front of that Jeep who barely speaks English, and that is the only language Americans know, which is not a good thing, by the way. It is a whole different experience because there's possibilities there. Good and bad, I understand. There's possibilities there. There's excitement, anticipation. There is what I call a richness in the engagement of life. An engagement in it. One is engagement and the other is mere observation. Which brings me to the heart of Easter. Because the truth here is that God does not lead us to an empty tomb, but a Christ through whom that tomb fills our emptiness with new life, engaging, challenging, and inspiring us. But what we have done is we have put bars between that resurrected Christ and us. Bars that we think protect us. But really, friends, what I tell you is they confine us. They confine the living Christ. They do not allow that power to come out. They do not allow those demands to change us, to enrich us, to empower us. And until we take those bars down and engage that resurrected Christ, we really have missed the power of Easter. We've missed it. Think about those first disciples. I would submit to you that Peter, Mark, Thomas, probably in their lifetime had not gone much farther from their hometowns than 1 or 2 days. That's what they knew. But after Easter, Thomas goes to India. Mark starts the church in Egypt, and Peter goes to Rome. They go around the world. They go on adventure. They go to places they were not even aware of in many ways before. They went on a wild goose chase that God led them on. They thought Easter resurrected them, and they in turn resurrected the world. Anybody read Newsweek about a week ago? They talked about, big article, if you haven't read it, it's about the emerging church, which is really about 20s and 30-year-olds in this country who are really challenging us and saying that you really don't need the church. The church has lost its flavor. The church has lost its livelihood. The church has lost its commitment. What you need is Jesus and to serve Jesus, which you can throw out and ignore, but you can't because they're right. They're right. The living Christ calls us to make a difference, to break down those bars, but they challenge us in that respect as well, because the church needs that life, that vitality, that calling, and the church, friends, is you, and it is me. So what I say to you, and what I would leave with you as you depart from this sanctuary into the rest of your day, is I say to you, do not come to the empty tomb and allow your faith, your life, to remain here. Don't do that. Do not underestimate or short your God. There are too many short sales going on in the world today. Don't short sell God. Do not do it. But rather allow this day to liberate your spirit. Liberate your spirit for that passionate, purposeful adventure that I believe God has in store for each of you. And you say, well, what is it? I don't know what it is. I'll tell you how to find it. Whatever makes you mad, sad, or glad, look there for God calling you. Whatever makes you mad about injustices in the world and wrongs, go there and right them. Whatever makes you sad where people are hurt or need help, go there and do something. And whatever brings you joy, whatever makes you glad, God is probably calling you to fulfill yourself, your mission, your purpose there. Look there. The adventure is there. The wild goose chase is there. Oh, the places you could go. Oh, the places God calls you. The wild goose chase, the wonderful goose chase that is out there. And at this moment, on this day, the risen Christ calls to you. Amen.